So, brethren, the sermonette this morning is really about, well, it's got a couple of different themes or morals, I suppose you could say, but it's really about being content. So I'd start the sermonette off by asking you, are we content? Are we content? And that'll become a little bit more evident as we go down through the sermonette. Oftentimes I like to use songs or stories and that type of thing as I begin sermonettes and sermons, and there are some songs that kind of show us the way we are supposed to live. And there are some songs that kind of show the opposite meaning, teach us how we are not supposed to live. The song I'm going to begin with here is basically a song about what we call a non-example, or the way that we should not live. So sometimes we can learn from, positive songs and positive stories, and sometimes we can learn, how to behave by the way others do it in an improper way. So that's kind of what this is about this morning. The song is called Gypsies in the Palace. Most of you know that I enjoy Jimmy Buffett, some of his music, and like I said, a lot of his songs are very appropriate, and other of his songs are not so much. Probably wouldn't recommend listening to them. This one here, it's not a horrible song, but the message is completely incorrect. The message goes against what we believe regarding wanting other things. It was a song that he wrote back in 1985 on his album. It's called The Last Mango in Paris. He's a very successful singer and songwriter. And the song is about a professional entertainer. He's probably talking about himself if you listen to the song, who's out on tour. And when he's out on tour, he hires a guy named Snake. That was probably his first mistake, hiring a guy with the name by Snake, and his buddy to watch his place while he's out on tour. So once the homeowner leaves, or the entertainer leaves, the two men notice all of the food and all of the liquor and the beer and all of the things that the entertainer has in his house. They shoot the lock off of the cabinet that has all the good stuff in it, and I'll read the lyrics to you here in just a moment. They invite all these people over to party, keeping in mind this is not their house. They're supposed to be watching this house. They throw people in the swimming pool. They basically make a mess of the guy's house. When the homeowner calls the house and reports that he's returning early, the two men panic. They rush everybody out of the house. They tell them the party's closing down, and they need somebody to clean up the mess that they've created. So at the beginning of the song, Jimmy Buffett has a narrative. He says this. He says, "In days of old, when knights were bold and journeyed from their castles, trusty men were left behind. Knights needed not the hassles. They helped themselves to pig and peach and drank from king's own chalice. Oh, it was a stirring night, these gypsies in the palace." So then the music strikes up, the band begins to play, and then he starts into the singing of the song. Here's the lyrics. They say, "So long, boss, knock 'em dead. Don't worry about a thing. Wish that we could come along, we'd love to hear you sing. The limo's here, your bags are packed. The list is by the phone. Me and Snake will watch your place. Treat it like our own." You'll see that that is not the case as we move along. They say, "Look at all this liquor, look at all this food. It's only going to go to waste. We're not really being rude. But the good stuff is in his closet. I swear he would not mind. We'll just shoot the lock off. I do it all the time. We're gypsies in the palace. He's left us here alone. The order of the sleepless nights will now assume their throne. We ain't got no money. We ain't got no right. But we're gypsies in the palace. We got it all tonight. There's damsels in distress out there. Look at all this beer. We'll free them from their condos and bring them over here. We'll show them his gold records. We'll play his music loud. We'll party just like Bubba does. We'll do the old man proud. We're gypsies in the palace. There ain't no wrong or right. We're gypsies in the palace. We're going wild tonight. He's the greatest guy to work for. Man, he's really cool. Hey, Snake, this party's getting dull. Throw someone in the pool. Hey, let's take our clothes off and form a conga line. Watch out for that broken glass. Hey, Snake, we need more wine. We're gypsies in the palace. There isn't any wrong or right. We're gypsies in the palace. We're having fun tonight. On this point in the song, the phone rings. Snake says, "Oh, hi there, boss. What's going on? You say you're coming when? I'll send Snake out to pick you up tomorrow night at 10. Everybody out of here. The show is closing down. We got to find someone to clean this up. He's coming back to town." "Hi there, boss. We waxed your car. We raked and mowed your lawn. We couldn't find enough to do in the short time you were gone. Man, it sure is peaceful here. You really got it all. If you ever hit the road again, give me and Snake a call. We're gypsies in the palace, he left us here alone. The order of the sleepless nights will now assume the throne. We ain't got no money, we ain't got no right, but we're gypsies in the palace. We got it all tonight. So as you listen to this song, Snake and his buddy were called upon by what I presume to be Jimmy Buffett while he goes out on tour, and he left them to take care of his house. He entrusted them to take care of what he had and to be a steward for his home. Now, a steward is somebody that practices stewardship. And we know we're never supposed to use the same word in the definition of the word we're trying to define, so I'll take that a little bit further. A steward, as it's used in the New Testament, means an administrator, a caretaker, a custodian, maybe a manager. The word refers to a person who is a faithful manager, somebody that oversees or takes care of either their own property or somebody else's property. Stewardship now is generally recognized as the acceptance of an assignment that take a responsibility to shepherd and safeguard the valuables of others. So as you listen to the lyrics of the song, how did Snake and his buddy do? Did they take care of the entertainer's belongings? Brethren, we are called to be stewards as well. God inspired Paul to make it clear that he requires his people to be faithful stewards of all that he gives us. And he has given us all different things, but we all have a lot. In 1 Corinthians 4, verse 1, 1 Corinthians 4, verse 1, it says this, then, is how you ought to regard us as servants of Christ, and as those entrusted with the mysteries God has revealed. Now it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful. See, one of the most important keys to a faithful stewardship or the management is vigilance. Further, we need to be vigilant stewards. We need to be watchful. We need to be alert, attentive, and awake in every aspect of life. A steward is not to be covetous. I'll read that one again. A steward is not to be covetous of what he's taking care of. If you understand the song that Buffett wrote, Gypsies in the Palace, that's what that whole song's about. They saw everything that he had and they wanted it for themselves. That's not why they were at the house. They weren't at the house to take his things. They were there to safeguard it and watch his things. In the lyrics of the song, it says, me and Snake will watch your place. Treat it like our own. Well, it wasn't their own. So they shouldn't treat it like their own. In that sense, they shouldn't be taking the things that were in there. Snake and his buddy wanted what the entertainer had. They coveted what the entertainer had. We know that the 10th commandment makes it very clear. What's it say? Do not covet. Do not covet. Exodus 20, verse 17. You all know this one by heart, but it goes into a little bit more detail with regards to coveting. It says, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Now, most of us don't have oxes and donkeys and that type of thing anymore. Mr. Seeker might be an exception to that rule, but most of us, and I don't want his donkey, he can have that. So most of us don't have those things, but we do have other things. We have possessions, and we're not to covet that either. So this is a timeless commandment. It's not just talking about oxes and donkeys. It says, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Our English word covet means to intensely or obsessively desire. It frequently refers to lusting after something that belongs to somebody else. So the biblical meaning is much the same, though expressed through a variety of Hebrew and Greek words. One of those words is shamad, C-H-A-M-A-D, or chamad if you want to spell it, C-H-A-M-A-D. It's used in the 10th commandment. It means to greatly delight in and can refer to legitimate desire or immoral greed. So it can have two different meanings. Also translated as covetousness, the Hebrew word betza, B-E-T-S-A, betza, means to plunder, to acquire or possess, an insatiable desire for dishonest gain. Snake and his buddy, that was a dishonest gain. They didn't earn that. They took it. Greek words translated covetousness in the New Testament convey greed, setting the heart upon, longing, or lusting for. Snake and his buddy definitely demonstrated that attitude of greed. The song lyrics clearly state, we ain't got no money, we ain't got no right. We don't care, we're taking it anyhow. They said, we got it all tonight. Brethren, God's instructions are timeless, as I mentioned. Coveting applies to this day and age when so many people are drowning in debt because they got to have what other people have. Snake clearly said again, we don't have the money and we don't have the right, but tonight we have it. We live in an impulsive society. I'm one of those people. That is a problem that I have, and I know that. We see something and we want it. We see something and we want it. We were at the Globetrotters game on Wednesday. The boys saw the Globetrotters ball and they wanted it. What's Dad do? Dad buys it. So, it's okay to have things. It's okay to have things, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But those that work in advertising, they prey on that impulsivity of this society. Most of us will be watching the Super Bowl tomorrow. 30-second ads. I don't know what the final number that they agreed upon, but it was going to be somewhere between $5 and $5.5 million for 30 seconds. That was depending on which teams made the Super Bowl. So I'm assuming because the Falcons made it and they are definitely the best team. Hopefully Papa will be watching this video. That's a plug for the Atlanta Falcons. It'll be that $5.5 million for 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Brother, why do we take such pleasure in physical things that maybe we should have, maybe some of those we shouldn't have? Well, for some of us, and hopefully not us, it does provide a feeling of fulfillment. It temporarily makes us happy. When you buy something new and nice, you're happy about that. Coveting, when actually carried out, can easily become other sins, leading to maybe stealing or lying. What did Snake and his buddy do? They did both of those. They stole the entertainer's food and drink, and then when he came back, what did they say? We did everything on the list. We raked your lawn, waxed your car. They didn't mention about eating everything that he had in the house, inviting all those people over and throwing people in the pool. They didn't talk about that, so they lied a little bit. Further, we live in a world where having things sometimes is a status symbol. I see it every day. Bryant mentioned working with middle school kids. Got to have that $150 pair of sneakers. Jackson said, I want these Currys, $150. I said, you've lost your mind if you think I'm buying $150 pair of sneakers. Thankfully, he has an uncle that's a dentist that takes good care of him, because he'd be wearing old hand-me-down sneakers if it was up to me. You don't need a $150 pair of sneakers that you're going to outgrow and ruin within a month. And I know Bryant didn't pay $150 either, so I'll make that clear as well.
I cut it off at $50.
Under Armour sweatshirts. I met with kids talking about goals and what you want in life. Do you have to have that $75, $50 Under Armour sweatshirt? I got one I bought at Sears. It's just as warm as the $50 Under Armour sweatshirt. Lasts just as long. But we want things. The list goes on and on. Jackson's spider jacket. Everybody walking in the middle school's got to have the spider jacket. $200, $300. You got the discount version. People want things. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with working towards buying things, as long as that desire for physical things doesn't get in our way of those spiritual riches. In 1 Corinthians 12:31, God talks about coveting again. 10th commandment, he tells us not to covet, but then he qualifies that by coveting the things of our neighbors. Here he tells us to covet. What are we supposed to covet? 1 Corinthians 12:31, it says, but covet earnestly the best gifts. I don't think that's talking about the best birthday gift that Mason may have gotten. He got some nice things for his birthday, but I don't think that's what it's talking about. It goes on to say, and yet show I to you a more excellent way. So here, brethren, obviously God's talking about those spiritual gifts. Living God's way, the most excellent way. It is our human tendency to look at those physical things to deliver us from maybe difficulties or disappointments. Some people will expect those physical things, which we set our hearts and minds on, to bring us happiness. You see that all over. You think you have it all when you spend a lot of money on particular physical items. That happiness soon goes away. We all get that when we buy something new. We're excited for a while, and then as the days and the weeks and the months go on, there's the new car sitting in the driveway, and it's just like the old car we had, right? So those things go away. The problem God finds with such a short-sighted view is that sometimes we enlist those physical things to compete with the spiritual. Brethren, we need to be content sometimes with what we have. We need to always stop wishing for more. Like I said, I definitely fall into this trap, wherein I used to have a pop-up camper. Fancy way to say a tent on wheels, because that's about all it was. You pop the thing up and bed on this side, bed on that side, and a bunch of garbage in the middle. Clothes and all the food and that stuff was in the middle. Paid $400 for it. There was nothing wrong with it. It would rain and pour, we would be dry. Hot as anything in there because there was no air conditioning. We had a little fan that we used, but we'd be at the campgrounds and, we enjoyed every second that we were in that little camper. But I'd be at the campfire and I'd look over and this RV would pull in, this fifth wheel would pull in over there. Even a little tow behind that I couldn't reach across like my pop-up. I would look at that and I would want that. Eventually, obviously, we did buy one, but again, nothing. So this sermonette's really for me, not for you, obviously. Again, nothing wrong with having things as long as you can pay for those, as long as it doesn't take sight off what we should be focusing on, those spiritual things. So like I said, at times we all covet others. We shouldn't covet others' belongings. I wasn't going to go steal that fifth wheel next to me. We were going to work and buy a new one. Again, nothing wrong with that. But if covetousness was not a problem, it probably wouldn't be in the Bible in multiple locations. It's all over the place in the Bible. So, brothers, as we begin to wrap up this sermon, let's take a look at an example from Paul in Philippians 4, verse 10. Philippians 4, verse 10. We can learn a lesson from Paul about being content, not always wanting something else. Philippians 4, verse 10, it says, I rejoice greatly in the Lord, that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. Paul continues, says, I know what it is like to be in need. I know what it is like to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through Him that gives me strength. Brethren, Paul wrote these words to the church in Philippi. And we know that Paul didn't always have everything. He was a prisoner at times. He spent a lot of his life sojourning, establishing and strengthening and building the church as he traveled. And like I said, his last few years of life, he was a prisoner. But if you look at his life, it would be hard to say that he was a covetous person. He was content. Paul realized how much he had to be happy about. He knew that his glory would be in the kingdom of God, not necessarily now. When we keep our eyes on the reality and significance of our calling, we can find it easier to ignore some of the glitter of all that material gain that's out there. Jesus Christ reminds us of our priorities in Matthew 6:33. Matthew 6:33. You don't need to turn there because you know what it says. It says, but seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Here is what I think is the key. So many people worry about things. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Ryan mentioned the parents driving me crazy. I used to worry about those things, but they're going to be there. They're going to be cranky and upset about something every single day I go into work. So if you worry about that, you got to find a new job. You deal with it. One day after another, you deal with it, and you just got to understand that's just part of what you do. So, brethren, as we wrap up, let us pray for contentment. Let us be content with what God has blessed us with. Thanking God for our blessings can help us focus on what we have versus some of those things that we want. Brethren, let us strive to covet the good things of God that we read about in 1 Corinthians 12. And brethren, if we do this, we will not be sidetracked wanting the ways of this world. We will be focused on the ways of God and being part of His family.